Hello everyone, welcome to our episode of Showcase on Bloodborne. Today's weapon, I figured I'd go back and do one of the other beginner weapons, although this one's a bit of the oddball, but a very useful oddball at that. It's either this or its fraternal twin, the Saw Spear, and by that assumption we know it's the Saw Cleaver. Interesting name, truly. One of the trick weapons of the workshop, commonly used in hunting business. Now, I'm not sure what other business a saw cleaver would use, but I'm guessing it would probably maybe gutting cows for their meat. Not sure what else you need a saw and a cleaver for. This saw, effective at drawing blood from the beast, transforms to a long cleaver that makes use of a transfugal force. The saw, with its set of blood-letting teeth that become a symbol of the hunt, and only grows in effectiveness the more grotesquely transformed the beast. That's an interesting part in the last there, and I'll explain that later, although it's not a huge deal about this weapon. But anyway, so yeah, interesting. Now, visually, well, starting off, you got the saw form. It's not a very good saw, I would have to add, but it's still there. Basic shaft, it's twitched, and you kind of go back and forth in a very awkward motion to saw anything. Feel like trying to get straight lines with that sucker. So yeah. Now, there's a lot of bandages on this thing, which I like to call this unnecessary bandages. You can find this all over anime. You can find it in many other places. You just slap bandages on it because it looks cool. Bandages add nothing. And we can see it has probably the most uninspired transformation of all time. So after you simply whip it, the saw pops up and now the cleaver is exposed on the underside, which if you did chop someone, those bandages will come immediately right off. Now I noticed that there's a handbrake in between the handle and the cleaver itself. A handbrake that you would naturally think, oh, that releases the mechanism, lets it pop back to its saw form. It's never used. An aesthetic that's there, makes sense, and it's never used. Let's go on to the stats for the Saw Cleaver. Okay, physical damage, we actually got quite a bit at 90 starting off. That's a good chunk actually. And with bonus damage at plus 42. Going on to special stats, we can see that it has 200 durability and not much else going for it. But that's alright. For the tree of bonus though, we got a D for strength, an E for skill, and a D for arcane. Ever-present arcane, but it's useful this time. For attribute requirements, you need 8 strength and 7 skill. So for a starting weapon, that's pretty decent. A lot of good base damage, and that's important for a starting weapon. But now, for the actual damage it does, it's a bit odd. As you see here, it does the basic physical damage, but it doesn't do blunt or thrust. And that's correct, it does neither. At all. That makes it weird, but there is a type of damage that is hidden, called serrated. And I'll talk about that more later, as it hinted at the description. Going on to the animation, you can see that the base attack is rather rapid. Very short range though. The power attack, for the Saw version, you can see it's pretty much very similar to the normal attack, just more heavy and lumbering and a wider angle of attack. The power charge version is more like using the thing as a brass knuckle and driving it down on someone's skull. Light back attack is again similar to a lot of the other attacks. There's not a whole lot of variety here, is there? Oh well. The power attack though is a more of an uppercut, which looks quite painful if you think about it. There's saw teeth on the end of the thing. Light rolling attack is a good little knee cutter there, over the knees. Power attack version though is no different from the plain power attack. The plunge attack is what you would normally assume it is, just dropping the weapon upon your opponent. Alright, now for the transformation. Very, very nice there, you can see it just whips out the saw form on that side. Normal attacks is very overhead and underhand swings, specifically. The power attack is then the, well, horizontal axis swings. Alright, and the charge attack, it's a very, pretty much overhead, aiming for the neck kind of swing, but you can see you can follow up with that attack. I'll do it again. So that's a neat little follow-up you can do with that, dropping it overhead on your opponent. Now for the step back attack, you can see it's a little strange. He wields it in like a scythe almost. It's very awkward looking. I'm not sure you could do a lot of damage with the cleaver doing that, maybe a decent cut, but that's about it. And the power attack version of that drops the weapon overhead on your opponent. Light rolling attack is going to the knees yet again. Power attack, no different from the standard one. Alright. There's a plunge attack, is a pretty much again going for vertical. I kind of expected overhead with that one. And now for the switchback. It's rather quick, and it's right to the point. Now you're probably thinking, SD, you've skipped an attack. You forgot the L2 attack, the extra attack. Well, here it is. There is none. When you transfer the weapon, as you noticed, it only takes up one hand. So your offhand weapon is still available, like your pistol. So there is no L2 attack, there's no extra. Going on to the upgrade for the Saw Cleaver here. Well, for the base damage, you can see you got a small mouse improvement, a little bit of 10 damage. That's pretty good, which is around 9. For bonus though, we're not seeing any changes early on though. Yeah, still no changes. Okay, and there on the boldness upgrade here, we can see the skill for D, well, the treatment for skill went up to D. But the strength only here at the final upgrade goes to a C. So that's like, eh. But however, we can see the bonus damage significantly increased. So despite it being tribute bonus being only meh, it actually does quite a bit of output there. Now, for the arcane, if you do add arcane damage, it changes the entire nature to arcane. So this is viable for arcane builds. With almost no damage whatsoever. I could probably almost do this myself, if I had the proper gens. Going on to performance with Saw Cleaver. Well, the weapon is fairly simple in its nature, but you can see this single saw is excellent for one-on-ones. Probably not very good on mobs, because it's very short range, but it still is rather quick, and I just spaced through that guy. Fantastic. But oh well, at least it's quick. But situations like this, bring out the cleaver, which you can hit multiple opponents with, and quite easily I might add, although at the cost of speed. But, as you probably noticed, the damage is the same. One version is not stronger than the other. I'll show this again, except strictly the cleaver. As I did around 208 damage with the saw form, you can see at the cleaver, I don't do a whole lot more. Very little in terms of more. So yeah. In that case, it's mainly what you want your weapon to do. It could be a faster weapon hits mobs at the moment, or you could get the saw forms and you're only fighting one opponent. And at that point, the cleaver is not really needed in that regard. So it's a very simple weapon, and to that very simple premise of it does the same thing regardless. It kills opponents just depending on which speed you have. It doesn't change nature at all. Alright, so in that regard, you can mainly use this saw form. Or if you tend to go and taking out every mob at once, then go for it and use the cleaver. With the only trade-off is the slow damage, which is alright. But in situations against the butcher here, the giant axe-wielding butcher, you'll probably want the saw form, for it's quicker. So yeah, but how does it do against a fully armored opponent? Well, the answer is poorly. Yeah. Although the saw form consumes very little stamina when using normal attacks, and you can rapidly use it, it doesn't do a whole lot of damage. And the same can be said against the cleaver form as well. It doesn't do thrust nor blunt damage, so it's very poor against armor. But of course, at this point, you wouldn't really be using the saw cleaver. You'd already better move on to another weapon. Generally, that's how it works. But oh well. It still could be used, it's just not the best option. But oh well, it's quick. At least for the saw form. Cleaver, I don't really notice any difference in terms of rally potential either, so it's pretty even. And against armor, very poor. Choose a different weapon. Now against the Shadow of Yharnam, it depends on what type you're using. The short version, I can keep up with him, but the range, he got me beat in spades. As you'll notice, he'll dodge me at 4 different times in this battle, using the saw form. It's just too short. He easily gets away, and then it proceeds attacking again, dragging out the battle. So the saw form against a very nimble opponent like a Shadow of Yharnam, very poor choice, or any other nimble opponent for that matter. Now, for the cleaver form, it's a bit of a different story. Now they can beat me in terms of speed, but now I match them in terms of reach. So that's again, that's a 50-50 pro and con in my book, in terms of fighting a nimble opponent like this. Then you gotta carefully choose your attacks, and time them just right, so you can hit your opponent that are much more nimble. But, in terms of usability, it still works. I won't say it's horrible. It works. Just as a starting weapon is intended to do. Alright, let's get on to the pros and cons of the saw portion of the Saw Cleaver. On the pros, it's a rapid single-handed weapon. It's also pretty decent for damage. Now I'll quickly mention the serrated damage. Serrated is it's one of the hidden damages in the game. What serrated does is 20% more damage to fully evolved beasts like werewolves. This includes bosses. Although the demographic for this enemy is actually quite small. There's only a handful of these kinds of enemies, werewolves being the most common, but I didn't bother showing the footage because it's only 20% damage increase and you could barely notice a difference. So that means that 208 damage becomes 230, so big whoop, but still there. Going on to cons, it has a very short range compared to most weapons. It's like almost fist length range. Alright. And that's pretty much it for the pros and cons, not too many cons. Going on to the score for the saw portion of the cleaver. Damage, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. DPS and the standard damage, good overall combination. Reach though, 2 out of 10. That is short reach, very short. Animation, I'm going to give 5 out of 10. Even though it's quick and rapid, it left a lot to desire. A lot of the attacks were very bland, like almost the same thing, just different body motion. If that makes sense to you. Bonus though, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. A lot of bonus damage, despite being the tree of bonus factors not being so high. Miscellaneous, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. But because it's a fairly solid weapon, and it does have that serrated damage, so that definitely goes there. That's pretty good. So in total, I give the saw portion of the Saw Cleaver 27 out of 50. It's a good weapon. Good overall. Now, moving on to the cleaver portion of the Saw Cleaver, on the pros, it's a transformed trick weapon that you can still use your offhand weapon. There are very few of those. Very few. So yes, it does lose its serrated status, but it still has much greater reach. Much greater. Significantly so. Almost threefold if I had to say so myself. So yeah. Alright, on the cons, it is a bit slower than Saw Cleaver. The saw portion, I mean. So yeah. And it does lose its serrated status. I'll put that as a con as well. Only the serrated status only goes for the saw portion. Now the score for the cleaver version of the Saw Cleaver. Damage, I'm going to give a 7 out of 10. Even without the serrated damage in there, there's not really any significant difference between these two. They're pretty much same weapon, different speed and reach. Speaking of which, reach, 7 out of 10. It's pretty much the spear length in terms of reach. Very good. Very nice. Animation gets slightly better points. I'll give that a 6 out of 10. Even though animation is slower, you do have a much better variety between the vertical and horizontal strikes. Keeps everything much more interesting. Bonus, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, same as the other one, because it's, again, same scaling, same damage. Miscellaneous, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10 though, because this one I feel like is not as interesting. Again, you lose that serrated damage, which is insignificant, but still, it's so much slower. It's better for mobs, yes, but it's slower. And that for me is like, when you have less damage, sure you can hit mobs better, but I'd rather do more DPS than raw damage. So, but still in the end, the cleaver of the Saw Cleaver gets 31 out of 50. It's a great weapon. Especially since you can use your offhand weapon. That's a big boon also, because you can get that parry in. Alright, time to show you what I could do with the Saw Cleaver now, with the proper gems installed. And actually it's rather surprising. As much as that bonus damage was impressive in terms of what you see in terms of stats, well, when you put a few gems in it, it can get quite high. I nearly doubled the base damage with just a few gems. So that's pretty impressive. Now, I didn't have the best gems in the game, no. These are only gems I make do with. So here's a short montage of what it can do. Alright, so it's pretty neat. In conclusion, it's a starter weapon. but it behaves like a mid-term weapon, like intermediate, like you get it halfway through the game. So I think this is an excellent choice for a starter weapon. And no surprise it's on the front of the game, the cover. At least for the North American. I'm not sure there's actually a different cover for the European, but it's besides the point. It's a good weapon. That's been Showcase for Taylor. Thank you all for watching. Hope to see you guys next time. Take care out there.